Welcome to the TMC Newsroom. My name is Rich Tehrani. Thanks for watching us. We're up in Boston, Mass. this week, and we're interviewing a number of personalities and companies in the communications and tech spaces. And on our program right now is V.A. Shiva. He's a professor at MIT and the inventor of email. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. I appreciate you being here. We were just looking at your copyrights from, was it 1982 on email?
Yes.
So pretty impressive stuff. So tell us a little bit about that. How did that come about?
Sure. In 1978, I was around 13, 14 years old, and I had learned programming in one of these intensive programming courses at NYU, which was a program that was set up by the National Science Foundation to invite young students to learn programming in an intensive mode. So I was one of the few students who was selected for that. After that, I got introduced to a gentleman by the name of Les Michelson at a university in Newark, New Jersey at a medical school, and he said, would you like to create an electronic mail system versus drop out of high school? And when I first heard the word electronic mail, I thought it meant sending electricity through paper. That's how new those two words juxtaposed were. So I spent the next 3 years actually building the first email system. And the reason I say it's the first email system was because there was modes of text messaging prior to that. But email is literally the electronic version of the inner office memo. So in this medical school, they had 3 different locations, and they used to have this, what was called a memorandum, which had a to, a from, subject line, the date, and then there were things called a CC, a carbon copy. So these secretaries would literally write a memo, and they would literally put a carbon copy, and they would make a copy of that. It was literally a carbon copy. Sometimes they did what's called a BCC, a blind carbon copy, and there were attachments. And this memorandum would get put into an inner office envelope. It would get sent to other offices within one campus or intra-office across multiple campuses. And the idea was, could you create an electronic version of this system? There was folders, inbox, outbox, drafts. So that's what I ended up doing for those 3 years. And that was the first email system. And in 1981, I applied for the first U.S. copyright and was given the copyright email, E-M-A-I-L. And I think recently the Associated Press also decided to go from E-mail back to email, which is what I originally applied the copyright for. So that's sort of the summary of that history.
Very exciting. And now I get thousands of them.
That's right.
So I remember the pink slips that we used to have in our office.
Right.
And the evolution from the pink slips to email is one of the reasons why you wanted to have a network. I mean, in some ways, the email is really the killer app for the SMB to get a network. Yeah,
email's a killer app. It's also an application for thoughtful communications, right? It's asynchronous, so you think about something and you write it down and you transport these letters and messages. Now today we use it for bills, for love letters, for personal communications, a whole lot of different types of communication, but it's still a medium where it's continuing to grow irrespective of text messaging and blogs. It's a medium that's necessary for these thoughtful types of communication.
And you've, speaking of thoughts and thoughtfulness, you've been giving a lot of thought to what's happening at the U.S. Post Office, right?
That's right. So, from my viewpoint, the Postal Service, the history of the U.S. postal system closely parallels itself with the history of democracy in the United States. I mean, Franklin literally created the postal system to really support democracy, which is for each citizen to have the ability to send mail to everyone else regardless of their position in society. So there's a close alignment with the Postal Service and freedom, but also innovation. Franklin was an amazing innovator. And that postal system is now coming under unfortunate attack because the executives who run it today have lost that culture of innovation. So they've built a $50 billion organization, but as email in 1997 started taking over the print mail, the Postal Service essentially ignored that development, and they continued on the path of doing print mail. In fact, I remember back in '97 meeting with some of the senior people and saying, hey, you should get involved in email, and you could build a whole slew of services. And at that point, they ignored it, and today, 14 years later, we're seeing the results of that. And the result is not to get back in innovation, seeing email for what it is, but to actually lay off workers. So there's 28,000 workers, I think, which were just laid off yesterday on Tuesday. And my proposal to the U.S. Postal Service is, if you really see what email is, those Postal Service workers could easily be retrained to be email workers. And if you don't do that, those same email worker jobs are going to be shipped overseas. So we're doing sort of two negative things. We're shipping jobs overseas, and we're also cutting workers here who are perfectly positioned to support this medium.
So the idea is a large enterprise receives many emails from its customers, and at some point a human being goes through these emails and determines where they go, and the postal workers are in a great position to be that organization that does this, because there are trusted people, and rather than sending these confidential emails overseas where you have potential theft and all sorts of other challenges. I mean, there's compliance issues also when you go overseas. You can keep them within the U.S. in a trusted organization, and the post office subsequently has a new revenue source, which is hiring out these people to do the manual job of sorting electronic mail within an organization.
Exactly, because if you look at today, these large enterprises have set up their own email postal services internally, but they're shipped to India. And we all know, if you read the current press, the amount of corruption that takes place in India. It is very easy to buy one of these people if you send your email there to pay one of these workers something to essentially get a company's complete email channel. Now, we never think about that about the U.S. Postal Service worker. It's always trust, neither rain nor sleet nor gloom of night. That's a brand these Postal Service workers have. And I think it's an opportunity for the Postal Service to leverage that brand and say, we will also process your email. Why are you shipping it overseas?
So it's very innovative. So do you think that this is something that will take place? If so, when do you think it'll happen?
Well, I think me as the inventor of email, and I could easily take the approach how email is going to kill print mail, but I actually see it as an opportunity. So one of the things we have done, with my work at MIT and elsewhere, is to really push this envelope. So we recently started doing a set of articles encouraging the postal system to start looking at email as an alternative service offering. And in fact, a few days ago, we heard back from the Inspector General's office as prior to this layoff saying, Shiva, we'd like to hear what you have to say. So we've offered them a couple of solutions. If they take it, we'll see. But regardless of that, I'm going to be pushing forward, with interviews like this with other medium, offering this solution to the public, and potentially other businesses, entrepreneurs will sort of push this envelope and offer these services for the Postal Service to also look at.
Now the challenge is, the first thing that comes to mind is just cost competitiveness with India and other countries, because the way the post office is structured with a strong union and pensions and excellent benefits. I mean, the benefits alone of a postal worker might be the same as the price of 10 workers in India.
Yeah, so when you actually look at it, the companies, the large enterprises who outsource to India, so the large guys do that because they have large volumes of email, let's say 50, 100,000 a day that they're receiving. The opportunity here is also, one of the sweet spots is for small businesses and mid-market businesses.
Right.
If you look at a mid-market businesses, they're getting 1,000 to 5,000 a month.
Sure.
For them to hire a dedicated email worker today is cost prohibitive.
Sure.
So many of them don't even process their, in fact, 70% of these companies don't even manage their email. They're losing leads, they're losing opportunities to solve complaints.
Makes sense.
For that volume, even if you charge $1 an email, I mean, we've seen numbers you can charge up to $2 per email processing.
Right.
It's a low enough amount that a company will pay, we believe, $1,000 to $2,000 a month, on a per unit basis, and it's a great service for the Postal Service to offer because they already have real estate space in local communities.
Sure.
And they also have infrastructure for this.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for being
Sure.
here. This was a great talk.
Thank you for having me.